Nate Thurmond was an elite high schooler in the Akron area, teaming up with Gus Johnson to win the city title. He was high school rivals with Jerry Lucas, and he didn't want to back him up at Ohio State, so he attended the smaller Bowling Green. After making 3 straight all-conference teams and becoming an All-American as a senior, he was chosen 3rd overall by the San Francisco Warriors. He was the backup to Wilt as a rookie, but once he was traded to Philly, Nate established himself as a top center in the league. He was never the most efficient offensive player, but he was so active on the glass that he gave himself plenty of opportunities for easy putbacks. He was also an underrated passer for his position, and he could knock down the mid-range jumper from time to time. But his greatest strengths were on defense. He had great timing on his blocks, and his post defense was elite, being one of the few centers to give Wilt a challenge in the paint. He also blocked Kareem's skyhook routinely, as he called Nate the toughest defender he ever faced. Nate dropped the NBA's first official quadruple double, also setting a record for rebounds in a quarter and becoming one of only 4 players to grab 40 rebounds in a game. Despite all these accomplishments, Nate's Hall of Fame career flew under the radar, even though he was able to hang with some of the best centers of all time. Welcome to PC Hoops, and let's get down to it. Nate was born on July 25, 1941 in Akron, Ohio. Once he got to Akron High School, he played with Gus Johnson, another high school star. The two combined to help Akron Central win the city title in 1958. Once Gus graduated, Nate developed into one of the best players in the state, so he chose Bowling Green over Ohio State as he didn't want to back up Jerry Lucas. Nate was a beast in college, leading a conference in rebounding during all 3 of his varsity years. He was a first-team All-American as a senior, and he set a school record with 31 rebounds in his final college game. By the time the 1963 draft came around, Nate was a highly coveted prospect due to his rebounding, defense, and athleticism. The Warriors needed more front court depth, so they chose Nate with the 3rd pick. San Francisco was led by Wilt and Guy Rogers, and Nate would be slotted as the backup power forward behind Wayne Hightower. Despite playing out of position, Nate was still effective, dropping 15 points and 17 rebounds in his 4th career game. He wasn't the most efficient player, but his rebounding and defense were as good as advertised. He had 23 double-doubles on the season, finishing 11th in rebounding, and he was one of 7 Warriors in the top 20 for defensive win shares. Wilt carried this team to a 48-32 record, as Nate was 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting, averaging 7 points and 10 rebounds. The Warriors earned a first-round bye, facing the Hawks in the division finals. Nate wasn't scoring too much, but he averaged 12 rebounds and shot 52% for the series, as the Warriors got past the Hawks in Game 7. They ran into the 5-time defending champion Celtics in the finals, and although Nate averaged a double-double, he only shot 32% in a 5-game series loss. Nate was now the starting power forward alongside Wilt, as he completely flipped the script, starting the season with 28 points and 20 rebounds. 4 games later, he dropped 28 points and 37 rebounds against Baltimore. He was becoming one of the most consistent big men in the league, averaging 14 points and 17 rebounds in December. But the Warriors were terrible. As of January 15th, they had lost 11 games in a row, and they weren't doing too well financially. They would trade Wilt to the Sixers for Connie Dearking, Paul Newman, Lee Schaefer, and cash considerations. As Wilt left, Nate became a legitimate star, dropping 24 points and 29 rebounds on the Lakers, 30 points and 32 rebounds on the Bullets, and 29 points and 29 rebounds on the Pistons. Nate finished the season 17th in points, 4th in rebounds, and 6th in defensive win shares, becoming an all-star for the first time. But the Warriors were the worst team in the league, finishing with a 17-63 record. Nate averaged 17 points, 18 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Warriors' terrible record earned them 2 top 5 picks in the 1965 draft. They chose Fred Hetzel 1st overall, but more importantly, they chose Rick Barry with the 4th pick. Nate continued to be one of the best players in the league, dropping 20 points and 27 rebounds in the season opener. He dropped 18 points and a career-high 42 rebounds against Detroit, followed by 36 points and 29 rebounds from the Pistons again. His scoring continued to improve, dropping 4 30-point games, and he grabbed at least 25 boards in 16 games. He was 4th in rebounding and 6th in defensive win shares, while Rick had a rookie year for the ages, averaging 26 points and 10 rebounds, making an All-NBA first team. Even with San Francisco's talent, they couldn't compete with teams like Boston, Philly, or LA, but their 35-45 record was only 1 game shy of a playoff spot. Nate averaged 16 points, 18 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Warriors added some solid guys in 1966 in Jim King, Jeff Mullins, and Clyde Lee. Nate dropped 24 points and 21 rebounds in the season opener. He averaged 19 points and 22 rebounds in November, 19 and 23 in December, and 21 and 21 in January, with his best performance being a 23-point and 37 rebound game against the Lakers. Nate grabbed at least 20 boards in 38 games, while also ranking 15th in scoring and 3rd in defensive win shares. He was the runner-up for MVP behind Wilt, but Rick was even better, leading the league in scoring as a sophomore. Although 5 other players averaged double figures, it seemed like Rick and Nate were doing most of the heavy lifting. Their elite offense scored over 122 points a game, helping them win 44 games, which was the best in the Western Division. Nate averaged 19 points, 21 rebounds, and 3 assists as the Warriors faced the Lakers in the semifinals. He put up 22, 24, and 7 in Game 2, and 22, 21, and 5 in the closeout Game 3. The Hawks were in the way of a finals appearance, and Nate was pretty efficient this time, shooting 55% as the Warriors won it in 6. The formidable Sixers were their finals opponent, as Wilt made life difficult for him. Nate grabbed 27 rebounds a game in this series, but he was missing a lot, shooting 29% in games 4 through 6, as the Warriors lost a nail-biter at home, watching Philly celebrate a title on their home floor. San Fran would be missing a huge piece in 1967, as Rick decided to leave for the brand new ABA, but this cleared the way for others on the team to shine. Nate also had a new frontcourt partner in Rudy LaRusso, but he was expected to carry a lot of the scoring load with Rick gone. He was putting up his usual numbers, but his passing skills would be on display a lot more, as he dropped 22 points, 24 rebounds, and 11 assists on the Lakers, and 16 points, 28 rebounds, and 10 assists on Detroit. However, the injuries would hamper him, keeping him out of 33 games. But despite this, he was still 5th in total rebounds. Jeff and Fred had breakout years, while Rudy, Clyde Lee, and Jim King all made the All-Star game. The Warriors didn't seem to miss Rick that much, as their 43-39 record was enough for another playoff spot. In his shortened season, Nate averaged 21 points, 22 rebounds, and 4 assists, but he missed the postseason and the Warriors were swept by the Lakers in the division finals. They didn't make a lot of changes in the offseason besides adding George Lee as the new head coach, but Nate was determined to come back strong, and he did, dropping 41 points, 27 rebounds, and 5 assists in the second game of the year. He put up 35 points and 34 rebounds against Philly, and 25 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists on the Suns. After finishing 18th in scoring, 2nd in rebounding, and 4th in defensive win shares, he somehow wasn't named an All-Star, but he did make the brand new first team All-Defense. Jeff and Rudy were named to the game instead, but even with the Warriors having 3 20-point scorers, they were still one of the worst offensive teams in the league, as out of 14 teams, they were last in field goal percentage, 11th in assists, and 13th in points. They finished at a pedestrian 41-41, but this was still enough to sneak into the playoffs. Nate averaged 22 points, 20 rebounds, and 4 assists as the Warriors faced the Lakers in the semifinals. He put up 15 points, 27 rebounds, and 8 assists in Game 1, and 27 points, 28 rebounds, and 4 assists in Game 2, as San Francisco won both. However, he shot 34% for the rest of the series, as the Lakers won 4 straight to eliminate them. The Warriors finally got Nate some real help in 1969, as they traded for Jerry Lucas. He continued to be elite, dropping 13 points, 30 rebounds, and 8 assists in the season opener. He dropped 29 points and 29 rebounds against Seattle, as he was easily getting the best of Bob Rule, blocking 6 of his 7 shot attempts in the first half. After his coach urged him to keep putting them up, he can't block them all, Bob responded, "Yeah, well, if I hadn't made that layup, it would have been all of them." Nate suffered a knee injury and would miss 39 games. Despite missing all this time, he was still in the top 20 for total rebounds. After a 22-30 start, Al Attles took over as the player coach, but the Warriors continued to struggle, only winning 8 more games after this. In his shortened season, Nate averaged 22 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 assists. As a new decade rolled around, the Warriors were the same old team. Nate didn't have the greatest start to the season, shooting 30% in the first 10 games, but he did recover, dropping 27, 22, and 5 on the Lakers, 25, 9, and 8 on Milwaukee, and a season-high 43 and 15 on Detroit. He played in all 82 games for the first and only time in his career, and while he wasn't quite as dominant on the glass, he was still a top 10 rebounder. He was an all-star snub once again, but he was top 10 in MVP voting and a first-team all-defense member. The Warriors continued their tradition of being a terrible offensive team, and once again, their 41-41 record was just enough for the playoffs. Nate averaged 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists, as the 66-16 Bucks were their semifinal opponent. Nate really didn't play up to his usual standards in this series, shooting just 37% as Milwaukee easily won in 5 games. The San Francisco Warriors became the Golden State Warriors in 1971, and lo and behold, they made some additions, trading Jerry Lucas to the Knicks for Cazzie Russell. They also drafted Darnell Hillman with the 8th pick, but he chose the ABA. Nate did his usual work this year, dropping 38 and 23 on Baltimore, 30, 19, and 8 on Cleveland, and a season-high 42 and 19 on Detroit. He was among the league leaders in the usual categories, while Kazi had the best season of his career. The Warriors had finally improved their offense and they won 51 games, their most ever at the time. Nate averaged 21 points, 16 rebounds, and 3 assists, as he had a chance for revenge against the Bucks. Nate had the best playoff series of his career, and he held Kareem to 40% shooting for the series. But after he nearly dropped a triple-double in Game 1, the Warriors lost 4 straight to be eliminated. Rick returned to the Bay Area in 1972 after a short stint in the ABA. They also drafted 2 rookies that would be impactful later in Gus Johnson and Charles Johnson. Nate didn't have much offensive responsibility now, so his numbers did drop. He could still turn it on any time though, as he dropped 25 and 24 on Seattle, 32 and 16 on Phoenix, and 39 points and 19 rebounds on 74% shooting against Portland. Speaking of efficiency, he shot 45% this season, which was the best mark of his career. Rick Barry did Rick Barry things this year, as Nate settled into a role as a defender and rebounder. Golden State was finally good on both sides of the ball, as their 47 and 35 record was second in their division behind the Lakers. Nate averaged 17 points, 17 rebounds, and 4 assists, as they met the Bucks in the semifinals for the 3rd straight year. Nate's numbers were pretty modest, but his biggest contribution was his defense on Kareem, as he held him to 43% shooting. The Warriors needed 6 games to advance, but this was the first time in 5 years that they won a playoff series. They met the Lakers in the division finals, as Nate dropped 22 points, 26 rebounds, and 5 assists in Game 1, but they lost. He held Wilt to just 7 points a game for the series, but Wilt was guarding him pretty well too, and the Lakers won the series in 5, including a 56-point victory in Game 3 as the Warriors shot 23% as a team. The league finally counted steals and blocks in 1973, so Nate's defensive impact could finally be quantified, but it seemed like he was starting to slow down. He dropped 6 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 blocks in the 4th game of the year. He put up 10 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 6 blocks against Houston, and 10 points, 25 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks against Cleveland. He wasn't scoring like he used to, but he was still 15th in rebounding and 8th in blocks. Rick and Kazi were both 20-point scorers, while Butch Beer contributed as well. The Warriors went 44 and 38, but they missed the playoffs, as Nate averaged 13 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. In 1974, the Warriors were still struggling financially, and the Bulls wanted a better center, so they traded Clifford Ray to the Warriors for Nate. The Bulls felt like he could be their lone starting center, so they wouldn't have to shuffle in 3 different guys. In his Bulls debut, he dropped 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and 12 blocks, the league's first official quadruple-double. He dropped another triple-double a week later against Buffalo with 11, 10, and 10. He almost had another quadruple-double against Portland with 11 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists, and 8 blocks. This was one of the best passing seasons of his career as well, as he dished at least 5 assists in 26 games. He was 11th in rebounding and 3rd in blocks, as the usual players helped Chicago win 47 games. Nate averaged 8 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2.5 blocks, as the Bulls faced Kansas City in the semifinals. Nate was essentially a non-factor off the bench, but he did shoot 58%, and the Bulls won the series in 6, facing his former team in the division finals. He scored more than 3 points just once, but he did grab double-digit rebounds twice. However, the Bulls choked a 3-2 series lead and lost in 7. Nate really didn't mesh well in the Bulls' offense in 1975, so he was traded to the Cavs in November for Steve Patterson and Eric Fernston. At 34 years old, Nate's career was winding down, but he provided solid defense and rebounding in limited pockets. His best performance was against Detroit, where he dropped 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Cleveland made their name as a defensive team, as they slowed the pace down and dug in their heels against their opponents, as their 3 gems, Brewer, Clemens, and Jones, led them to 49 wins and their first playoff berth ever. Nate averaged 4 points, 5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks, as the Cavs faced the heavily favored Bullets in the semifinals. Nate was a decent contributor off the bench, but Dick Snyder's game winner in Game 7 started the miracle at Richfield. Jim Jones was injured heading into the conference finals against Boston, so Nate would start. He was playing pretty well, including an all-around performance in Game 3, with 6 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 4 blocks. He dropped 13 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks in Game 6, but Cleveland lost at home and their historic playoff run was over. Nate was on his last legs in 1976, but he was still effective in his limited role. His best performance was against the Kings, with 9 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. He only had 3 double-doubles this year, and he played in 49 games due to injury. In his final season, he averaged 6 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. After his retirement, he returned to San Francisco and opened a restaurant called Big Nate's Barbecue. In 2013, he was given the title of Warriors Legend and Ambassador. When Golden State won their first title in 50 years in 2015, Nate was present at the victory parade. In July 2016, Nate passed away at 74 years old due to leukemia, and the Warriors wore a 42 patch on their jerseys for the 2016 season. Nate Thurmond was never going to wow you with his offensive skill set, but his dominance on the glass and hustle on defense made him an all-time great. He stood toe-to-toe with some of the best centers of all time, and he held his ground. He impacted the game in so many ways that he didn't have to score a lot of points to be effective. Even after Wilt and Rick Barry left the Warriors, he remained a loyal contributor for a decade, establishing himself as a legend in the Bay Area and earning a deserved spot on both of the NBA's anniversary teams. Thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all for the support. I saw the overwhelming majority of you guys vote for Nate Thurmond in that poll I put up. Of course, I kind of knew that he recorded a quadruple double. And the thing is, he wasn't the most efficient offensive player, but he was so active on the boards, like he could score 30 points, and half of that was off offensive rebound putbacks. He was naturally strong. Like, you see his body, like he was so muscular. Nobody was lifting weights back then, so that was just natural muscle. And the fact that you held your own against Wilt and Kareem is crazy. Like, nobody even talks about that. But it seems like after Rick Barry left, the Warriors could never get it together. You see the teams that they had around Nate, their guard play was the biggest thing until Rick Barry came back. They didn't really have any great guards. I mean, Al Adams was good, but he was a defensive guard. They had like Jim Barnett. Jeff Mullins was good, but he wasn't Rick Barry. I think that was their biggest thing. They didn't really have any great guards. Nonetheless, Nate Thurmond is a complete legend. Shout out to Nate Thurmond, RIP to you, one of the best centers ever. But thank you, I really appreciate y'all for the support. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Turn on post notifications on if you haven't already. Thank you, please be safe. I'm out. Peace.